Today guys, I've got a really cool project from a customer. We are going to be cutting 4.6 meters of vinyl, different colors, and adding it to Chromadek to go outside on a building for a new venture that they'll be doing. So we're going to go through this process by process. First thing we need to do is have a look at our artwork and discuss what we're going to do. So let's get to it. Having a look at our artwork, it is pretty simple. We don't have a lot of colors to deal with here, and because we are not printing this, we have to cut them out layer by layer and apply them one by one to the Chromadeks. But we have two pieces of Chromadek that we're putting together to make one big sign. So what we need to keep in mind is when you're designing for something like this, you need to be able to cut your artwork in half. And in this case, luckily for us, in half is directly down this line here, which is going to be very easy for us to cut it in half so we can piece those two pieces together. And one thing you got to keep in mind whenever you're doing things like this, you must make sure that when you're sending this to your cut file, you have to separate your colors. You can't keep them all the same color, otherwise you will have difficulty doing this later. So keeping in mind all of that, if we look at our cut file, and as I've done it here, we've separated all our colors. If we have a look at the black, which is what we're going to be doing first, let's just give that a rotate. You can see in this black here, it has the entire sign that we're going to be cutting for our artwork, which will be perfect because what we'll do is we'll cut the entire piece of black, then cut it down the middle. Now if we have our next color, which is green, which is perfectly fine, that's by itself. The blue as well, it's by itself. And then we have our red. Now because the red is separated over the sign at quite a big distance, we're going to be wasting all this vinyl if we just push cut. So the best thing here is to separate these two colors so that we can cut them individually, because remember we're doing this layer by layer. We'll be doing black first, then we'll be doing other colors on top. So keeping that in mind, the red does not need to be next to each other. It can be cut separately. We don't need to cut it in this orientation. So the first thing you'll have to do is change that color to something else. So let's ungroup all of it. Let's zoom in and let's select this color, this other red that we have, and change it to another color like orange. And there we go. Now that we've done that, we can go back and have a look at our cut file and look at the red again. So as you can see, we have our previous red piece, which is on the left hand side of the sign. That is going to be cut by itself, and you can see I've also put in the orange, which is still going to be red, but we just need to cut it separately to the first red piece. So now that we've done that, we can head on to our cutter and start cutting all of this up. So let's get to it. Alright guys, now we need to cut all our vinyl up, and we're going to first start with our black, mainly because it's our biggest piece and we want to make sure that we get this done so we can start the sign while the others are cutting. So you got to make sure whenever you're cutting through cut vinyl, you have to make sure that your pressure is correct. If your pressure is too light, that means you will not cut all the way through the vinyl and you'll end up tearing your vinyl while you're weeding out everything that you don't need. Next thing is, if your pressure is too high and you end up cutting through your vinyl and into a bit of the backing card, when you're trying to peel off your vinyl with the application tape on, you end up tearing the backing and it gets stuck to the adhesive side of the vinyl and it just gives you massive headaches. So you want to make sure that you do your test cuts in various places along the cutter to make sure that you've got the perfect pressure. Now that we've just got that out the way, we can cut these vinyls all the colors that we need and get to our weeding stage. Now that we've cut everything up, we can now start weeding. The weeding process is quite simple. You just have to take your time and go from a certain angle and just slowly move along without rushing. Because if you have not cut your vinyl correctly, you're going to end up weeding out things that you actually need, and you're going to cause problems for yourself later and maybe need to recut letters or certain artwork, which is going to cost you more money. So rather take your time. If you don't know what you're doing, just weed slowly, get yourself a nice pair of tweezers and you'll be able to do it pretty quickly once you start learning it. From there, the difficult part is now done. Now we just need to apply our backing tape, which we're going to do with the laminator and by hand. I use 3 different sizes to make sure that I cover all of my artwork and make sure that everything is stuck nicely so that when we apply it to the Chromadek, we don't have any creases. Specifically for the black vinyl, I used my 1.3 meter wide backing tape and I used the laminator. And the only reason I do use that one is because it's going to be the easiest for me to apply it at one time rather than lots of little smaller strips. Lots of little small strips aren't a problem, you can do it, but it just takes so much longer. So rather get the size that you need and use a bigger size than a smaller size. Now just before we go and apply, you need to make sure that you've got a bottle of water with a little bit of sunlight soap so that we can spray the vinyl as soon as we peel it off the backing card and the board itself. Now always keep in mind to keep your board nice and clean, otherwise that dirt that will be on it will stick to underneath of the vinyl and cause bubbles. So make sure that you apply lots of water because it can be squeegeed out later. Rather have too much than too little. Otherwise, if you need to move your vinyl and you've already stuck it down and need to peel it off, you won't be able to get it off without damaging your artwork. Before we get to applicating our black, we chose to do the left-hand side of the Chromadek first, and we're going to need to cut down the middle where I showed you previously. So once we've done that, you got to make sure that it will continue straight from one Chromadek to the other. So the only way you can do that is making sure that you measure all 4 corners to see where it needs to sit exactly according to your artwork layout. And if you've done that correctly, it will come out as one without any problems. Now, if you crinkle your vinyl, it is not a problem. You can still save it later on. As you can see, I just applied it to the board, used a lot of water to make sure that the adhesive is not sticky whatsoever. Because if you do it in such a manner where if you just stick it on without any water, those crinkled vinyl will come out even worse than before and you cannot save it. So when it comes to applying your backing tape, just make sure that you apply enough pressure. Go slowly while peeling your backing card away to make sure everything is stuck properly. Even if there's crinkles, we can fix it. Whenever you're doing something like this with such size that you'd rather not make any mistakes, it's best to have more than one person, at least 3 to 4 people helping you with this sort of size, especially when it comes to laying out sticker with multiple colors and it's multiple layers. If you drop one side of the vinyl and it sticks to itself, it's game over, you have to restart. So my advice is make sure that you've got enough people for the size job that you're doing so that you don't make any mistakes. Now that the board is done and our vinyl's on it and it's looking really good, all we have to do is assemble it, and that's going to be on location, so see you there.
At AM.CO.za, we have always taken pride in our products and customer service. Our Google rating represents our commitment to providing our clients with the best support possible. We have officially achieved a rating of 4.9 stars and an astounding 699 reviews for our Jet Park branch in Johannesburg at the end of 2020. Hlobosile Khumalo, a level 6 local guide who has 64 reviews all over the country, says, "The tech support team is on point. I had an issue with my machine. I called them and they said I must bring it in. The person who helped me checked everything and made sure everything was 100%. Kind staff members helped me load my machine in and out of my car." This was just one of the many appreciative reviews we have received. These tags mean a lot to us. Thank you so much for your support. Let's move our attention to our branch in Montague Gardens of Cape Town. where we have achieved a rating of 4.8 stars and an amazing 299 reviews. Level 7 reviewer Dash Somolu, who has 119 reviews on Google, says, "Great company, great products and very well priced items. The training we received from Messias Chunga was top-notch. He was very knowledgeable and knows his stuff." Another satisfied customer amongst many. We would like to thank you, our loyal customers. Thank you, South Africa. AM.CO.za. Achievement matters.